Hey everyone, it's Adam Bergman here for an emergency live session or Adam Live emergency. Better happen soon. It's hard to believe. I just was doing a live session a couple hours ago and checked my emails after the live session, which was on Roth conversions. Bang! Get word that a new markup of the Build Back Better bill was released. And this is the manager's version, still about 2,400 pages or so. And to my dismay, there are a number of provisions that have been brought back from the dead. Back to the future, I don't know, but definitely they're back. And let's talk about some of the IRA provisions that seem to be in what looks like a more final type of bill that will be a part of budget reconciliation and infrastructure. So it's been a wild ride. It's certainly a roller coaster. I'm happy I don't live anywhere near Washington, D.C., because I don't think I can do and deal with this stuff much longer. But let's get into some of these provisions. I'm going to keep this live session short because I just want to focus on the key retirement provisions. Anything not related to retirement accounts, obviously, those are available, and there'll be plenty of media attention on them in the coming days. But let's start with the cap. The cap was dead. It was gone. About a week ago, we got word that the cap on retirement accounts, the $10 million cap, was done. It was not going to be part of a final bill. Not sure what happened in the last week. Probably something to do with Senator Wyden and his group, which have been very focused on large retirement accounts. So we believe that somewhere in the Senate markup, these provisions were added. And let's talk about the cap. So initially, the September 15th Ways and Means Committee bill, the proposed bill, had a cap on all retirement accounts, Roth, 401k, IRA, of $10 million. And if you are over that $10 million, you have to take force required minimum distributions, which even in the case of Roth would be taxable if you're under 59.5. This new variation of the cap is a lot more moderate, a lot more, I think, realistic. The way this provision works now, seemingly, and I just spent the last 3 hours going through the bill and kind of forgot what it felt like to be a lawyer. And especially, I felt like I was a first-year associate trying to decipher new legislation for a partner and needed a memo drafted in the next few hours because it was pretty stressful. But this is what seemingly is happening, that there's still a cap. It will be $10 million, okay? But if you have a Roth and you're under 59.5 and you have to pull money out, it will be a qualified distribution. So seemingly, it will not be subject to tax, okay, which is different from the initial bill, which suggested that you would have to pay tax, not a 10% penalty, but a tax on Roth forced distributions over $10 million. So based off the new language in this manager's version or rewrite of the bill, it appears that the Roth folks would be subject to no tax on a qualified distribution forced. If you still have a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k pre-tax, you would still be subject to tax, not a 10% penalty on distributions over 10 million. But same caveat, you need to have income over 400,000 or 450,000 if you're married, filed jointly. So if you have 10, $15 million in an IRA and your income's under 4 or 450, you wouldn't be forced to take a required distribution. If your income is over 4 and 450 and you have over $10 million, you will be forced to take a required minimum distribution. But if you have a Roth, it will not be taxable. It would be deemed a qualified distribution. If it's a pre-tax IRA or pre-tax 401k, it would be taxable, but not subject to the 10% early distribution penalty. On top of this, now this is the best part. This provision doesn't kick in until 2029. So for the 2028, it starts December 31st, 2028, which is huge because the initial bill, this was starting January 1st, 2022. So it was basically subject to the 2021 taxable year. This would be subject to the will be tax years beginning after December 31, 2028. So a lot can happen from today until 2029. So this provision may ultimately get kicked out. Even if it passes, maybe it gets removed in future years. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but we have 7 years. So the idea is, hey, if you're 52, 53, 54 years old and you have over $10 million in a Roth, you could probably breathe easy now, assuming this language sticks, because you're not going to have to take a taxable Roth distribution. If you have 10 million in a plus in a pre-tax, then it's not going to matter, right? Because you would still have to pay the tax. But for Roth folks, what the unfair part of the initial legislation was that they were basically forced to take taxable distributions, which probably was unconstitutional considering they were in a Roth. So I think they redrafted that. This is far more reasonable, moderate. Again, I'm not in favor of caps, but I'm also not really going to stick my neck out going against them. A $10 million cap today doesn't seem a lot. In 10, 15, 20 years, with time value money, compounded returns, your money doubles every 8 years. Yeah, maybe $10 million won't seem as high, but today, again, you're talking about probably a few thousand people in the whole country. So not really a big issue. And plus, if you keep your income under the 450 threshold, if you're married, filed jointly, or 400,000, if you're single, you don't have to worry about it. So not a big deal. You also have language, same thing. If you have over 20 million, you have to get to 10 million in 2 years. And then once you're over the 10 million, you have to obviously take distributions, assuming you have income over that 450. Again, only starts in 2029. A couple other interesting wrinkles. It seems that rollovers, also, if you get money by divorce or death, doesn't seem to count towards the cap. Rollovers don't seem to count against the cap. Same with SEP and simple contributions don't seem to don't seem to count against the cap. So we'll see how that plays out. Again, I just saw this language 3 hours ago. So still trying to digest it, but based off my reading of the provisions, that seems to be the case. Now, the next two are biggies too. I've been in favor of backdoor Roth IRAs and mega backdoor 401ks. Why? It's just a way for regular folks like you and me to put a little bit more money in their Roth. The big time wealthy folks like the Peter Thiels, the Jeff Bezos, the billionaires, they don't care about backdoor Roth IRAs to put in $6,000 or $7,000. They don't care about a mega backdoor 401k where you can put away $58,000 or $64,500 in a Roth 401k, dollar for dollar. They're not self-employed, right? They're executives. They work at big banks or hedge funds with employees. These provisions are targeting you and I, right? The sole practitioner lawyer, the small accountant, the consultant, the small business owner. Okay, the mega backdoor Roth rules basically were became legal again after the financial crisis, where Congress wanted to incentivize people to do conversions. So they reduced the conversion threshold and allowed people to do backdoor Roths, where you contribute funds into an after-tax IRA and then convert it to Roth tax-free. You're talking about $6,000 or $7,000. That's not going to take you to the $10 million. So I'm not sure the policy behind this, the initiative, why they're pushing so hard to keep this in. It's not going to raise any money. It actually is going to reduce revenue because people are going to be forced to do taxable contributions, right? If you were a big Roth lover like I am, you're just going to put more money in a pre-tax IRA or pre-tax 401k. If you don't max out your 401k and you wanted to take some of that extra cash and do a backdoor Roth, now you can't do it. You're going to make sure you max out on a 401k. Clearly, what they're really trying to do is they're trying to stop any rich person who makes over the Roth threshold, which is currently $208,000, from somehow finding their way into a Roth. Again, $6,000 or $7,000 doesn't move the needle. Let's be honest. Yeah, Peter Thiel was able to take a few thousand, turn that into billions, but that's 1 out of 350 million Americans. Like, come on, that's not happening. So, again, I'm not going to fall over the sword for this thing. Not a big deal, but a little bit suspect. Not sure why they wanted to push so hard to keep this backdoor Roth in. Now, the mega backdoor Roth 401k, again, yes, it pushes more money in a Roth. Doesn't reduce taxable revenue because it's not tax deductible, right? So it's actually saving You can argue it's making Treasury richer in one sense, because instead of small business owners doing pre-tax contributions, they're doing after-tax to Roth. So that's obviously less deductions that will reduce taxable income. If you remove it, those folks are now just going to make pre-tax contributions and reduce their taxable income by that amount. Who's this hurting? Again, who can set up solo 401ks, right? You really can't do mega backdoor 401ks in large companies. Only very few large corporations offer it. Wall Street Journal article recently suggested about 20% of companies offer it. I think it's far less, because they're going to fail what's called the ACP ERISA test, because if not enough regular rank and file employees are making these after-tax contributions, and some top-heavy people are, some high executives, it's going to fail the top-heavy test. So I don't see a lot of companies that offer it even being able to pass it. So this is really targeting small businesses. Solo 401ks essentially. It's the only 401k type that can do this. Who sets up solo 401ks? Well, small business owners, right? You got to be self-employed. Can't have any full-time employees other than owners or spouses. Anyone works more than 1,000 hours. So Peter Thiel, no. Jeff Bezos, no. Warren Buffett, no. Elon Musk, no. You're not talking about millionaires, billionaires that are being able doing this solution. So again, I'm not going to fall over the sword on this one either, but not sure really the impact this is going to have. Conversions, Roth conversions. Now again, they want to limit conversions, but not until 2032. So they're basically saying, hey, you can still do conversions because we need that money to pay for this bill. But after 2032, when the bill's paid for, we want to limit conversions. And the limitation, again, is that number 400,000 if you're single, 450 and you're married, filed jointly. So essentially, whoever, again, put this provision in, whether it was the Senate or some of the Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee, they clearly want to stop conversions, but they don't want to stop it in the next 10 years because they basically want this bill paid for. So again, these are policy initiatives. The backdoor Roth is not going to raise any money. The mega backdoor Roth 401k is not going to make any money. It's actually going to hurt revenue for the Treasury because more people are going to do pre-tax. Contributions will reduce taxable revenue. And then the conversions, they want to stop conversions, but they don't want to stop it too quickly because it's going to hurt revenue. So they're going to stop it after 2031. Good news. The 138312 and 138314, the old accredited investor and the old 10%/officer, which prohibited IRAs from investing in any accredited investor investment or any investment involving the IRA owner owning more than 10% or being an officer, have been removed from this markup or this manager's draft. So that's good news. Again, nothing's final until it's final, right? Until the president signs his name on the bill. But good news, looks like members of the Ways and Means Committee, Democrats, Republicans, the Senate realized the dramatic negative impact those provisions would have on investors, giving them investment diversification, and also small businesses that rely on that $12 trillion of IRAs as a form of capital formation. So good news, right? The accredited investor and that 10%/officer provisions, which were really quite negative and devastating to the ability of great American businesses and startups to raise capital from IRAs, are not in this draft as well. So again, very, very positive development. But the cap is still in, but modified. Again, I think way more moderate and I think more palatable to even folks that have over $10 million. I think I had a call actually with a gentleman that has over 10 million in a Roth IRA who's in his 50s, and he's like, okay, I can live with this. Like, I see where they're going. And he's a Democrat. He actually supported, he gave a lot of money to Biden PAC. And he's like, I'm a reasonable person. I made my money in equities. I didn't do anything even crazy. I didn't even buy cryptos. I didn't even buy real estate. Like, I literally just bought Facebook and Tesla and all these other great companies. And yeah, now I have over 10 million. And if I can pull it out in Roth and not pay tax, fine. I can live with that. But to force me to pay tax the way it was drafted prior, kind of rubbed them the wrong way. And I understand that. Also, this bill also seeks to extend the statute of limitations for IRAs from 3 to 6 years. again, it's only going to raise 42 million bucks, so it's not a revenue raiser, but policy. This is something that whether Senator Wyden or Congressman Neal wanted in to give the IRS more ammunition. But you would think if there's so much widespread abuse in IRAs that this provision would raise more than 42 million bucks, right? So, but they may get the 6 year, which is strange, right? You think if the IRS wanted 6 years to audit, it would, the last area would be is IRAs, right? It would be small businesses. It would be maybe large pension plans. Why would it be IRAs? It doesn't even have its own audit department. Seems strange that they want to really provide this benefit to the IRS just for IRAs and not other areas. Policy. It's not a revenue raise. Again, it goes back to this notion, which I believe is false, that, and I know it's false, that there's a lot of shenanigans going on in IRAs and the IRS needs more time to find it. If there was a lot of shenanigans going on, trust me, there'd be more than 497 Americans with more than 25 million in their IRA and more than 28,000 Americans with more than 5 million. Considering time value of money, compounded returns, people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, those numbers would be way higher if it was just so easy to shift taxable income into Roths, whether it's through startups or real estate. It's not that easy. Okay, clearly the numbers, are evidence of that. What else is in this bill that's interesting? The IRS is still getting more money, so they'll be happy with that too. The provision limiting foreign sales corporations and discs that was in the prior markup of last week is also in this markup, but again, pretty irrelevant. No one does those types of transactions. So just to recap, good news all around. This is definitely more palatable. I think this is more moderate. I think more people in the industry can get around this markup. Credit investors and officer 10% thresholds for IRAs are not in this. So self-directed IRAs are not targeted in this bill, which is great. Cap. The cap is still there. That 10 million cap applies to IRAs, 401ks, even 403s and 457s in the aggregate is one plan, but it still applies if you have income only over 450 or 400 if you're single. So if you're under that threshold, you don't have to worry about the cap. If you're over that threshold and have a Roth and are under 59.5, seemingly you should be able to pull that money out as a qualified Roth distribution without tax. So much easier to swallow and digest than having to pay tax on a forced distribution in a Roth if you were under 59.5. Also, another really good part of this is it does not kick in till 2029. Okay, so really good stuff. It used to be under the old bill, 2022 would start. Now it's going to be effective December 31, 2028. Okay, so basically for the 2028 taxable year and 2029, you're going to have to pay tax based off the 2028 taxable year. So it gives us 7 years to figure out what to do. More and more people will be in that $10 million bucket. Why? Time value of money. If you have $5 million today and you average 8% rate of return, in 8 years, you're going to have 10 million. That's just the way time value of money works, compounding returns. So more and more people will be in that $10 million bucket. Yes, maybe it will be raised for inflation. Maybe the cap will ultimately be removed by a later bill, whether it's proposed by the president, by the House and the Senate, whatever it is. There is a good chance, a very good chance, that ultimately, even if this passes, that by 2028, this cap may not even be around. So that was very positive, right? So anyone in their early 50s now has some more wiggle room and can breathe a little bit easier because they're not going to have to come up with taxable distributions on their money next year. So that's great. Now, one other thing, the backdoor Roth IRA seems to be in the crossfires here. That looks to go away by 12/31 of this year. Same with the mega backdoor 401k. That could be on the crossfire 12/31 this year. So keep in mind, Roth conversions potentially could be eliminated, but not for the next 10 years. So you can still do Roth conversions over the next 10 years, irrespective of income value. Why? Because they need the money to pay for this bill. So, but in 10 years, they want to limit it. What happens in 10 years? I have no idea. I don't even know what I'll have for breakfast tomorrow. look what happened in the last 6 weeks, right? We went from no cap to a cap to no cap to a cap. So it's certainly fluid. A lot could happen in the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So other than that, those were all the big type provisions. Don't think I missed anything. But again, I will probably talk more about this in the coming days. This was just wanted to kind of get an emergency live out there. So if anyone's interested, hopefully there's a lot of interest out there. I think there is. You'll have some more information on this, so you can hopefully understand it a little bit better. Because if you read the bill, which I don't suggest doing, it would confuse the heck out of you. It confused the heck out of me, and I've been practicing law for since 2001. So, and I have a master's in tax law, and this stuff still is written so poorly and so confusingly that I'm amazed that it actually can make it into a bill. That's really it. It could be worse. It's kind of a win almost, I would say. Honestly, last week I thought we were in the clear. I thought all provisions would be out. I heard some innuendo, some rumors saying, "Hey, Adam, don't get too optimistic." That's why when I did a YouTube live last week, I was certainly more optimistic than some people thought. I had a lot of comments saying, "Why aren't you happier? Why aren't you celebrating? Where's the champagne?" And I was like, "Whoa, let's wait it out." And that's why we didn't send anything to our clients announcing that, victory parade, no more Roth provisions, no more credit investor or 10%/officer provisions, because I expected something like this to happen. I'd say it was like 70-30 that this could happen. So that's why I was kind of quiet and more reserved. So this is where we are today. Looks like we're going to have to deal with some type of IRA-related rules, some type of cap, but again, some flexibility there versus income. We have 7 years to deal with it. And even if you are under 59.5 in 7 years and have over 10 million, it seems like it would be a qualified distribution, so tax-free, so not a revenue raise. So really the IRA provisions aren't going to raise any money. It's really policy. That's what it's going to come down to. So we'll see down the road whether it's this administration, if they end up kicking these provisions out, or a future administration says, you know what, it doesn't raise any revenue, and from a policy initiative, I don't want to support caps, and I don't want to support eliminating backdoors and mega backdoors, because I want to incentivize people to save. I want to encourage people to use the retirement system to help grow their family wealth and help their family and help themselves leave a legacy to their family. So that's certainly very possible in the coming years that these provisions may never see the light of day, especially the conversion, which won't happen for 10 years. And more importantly, the cap, which doesn't expect to kick in for 7 years. So I got a question here. This is done. I kind of just dropped this live. I didn't really give any notification. So I'm happy there's some people on here. It's obviously going to be on YouTube. So another great reason to subscribe to our channel. There's daily content. We drop 4 videos a week, 3 podcasts. So there's always new content if you're interested or bored or wanted to learn a little bit more about self-directed retirement accounts. I think a good place to get your info. Okay, Sarah, this morning you mentioned that with added risk of government changing the rules, you might think twice about putting money towards Roth contributions conversions. Thoughts on that at this point? Yeah, Sarah, still, I agree. You see how things change from even 1 week to another. The good news is conversions will be allowed for the next 10 years, but I would think twice. I mean, honestly, I would think twice about doing conversions. Because of the added government risk that they can kind of just change the rules mid-game at any point. So the only time I would say do the conversion is if you literally have a guarantee that your investment is going to kill it. So if you know that you're investing in this cryptocurrency or this real estate deal or this stock, and you believe in your heart that this is the next Facebook, this is the next Tesla, or this is the next Ethereum, then doing a Roth conversion could make sense, especially if you're converting a low amount of money, right? If it's a small amount of money, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, okay, and the government changed the rules on you, not a huge deal. But if you're converting 100, 200, 300,000 bucks, and you're paying 30, 40, 50 grand tax on that or more, and then they change the rules on you, and now that potential huge advantage, that benefit is eviscerated and no longer valid, that hurts, especially if the investment does not materialize. It adds more risk to the conversion discussion, to the formula for determining whether a Roth conversion makes sense. So yeah, Sarah, I still feel strongly that I'm not as bullish on conversions as I was 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. If you asked me 7 weeks ago, I'd say conversions make sense. If you're young, if you can afford it, if you can pay the tax, it makes sense. Even if you're just buying Tesla or Facebook stock, time value of money, compounded returns, and money's going to double every 8 years. So if you're young and you're in your 30s, you can expect it 4 or 5 times your money in the next 30, 40 years. It's a no-brainer. Do it. Even if you're not taking super risks, just buying S&P 500 mutual funds ETFs, you're going to get that 8% over the next 40 years. Now, and conversion question on more considerable amount of money, I'm not as bullish. I certainly pause. I would think about it. I wouldn't just jump in head first as I would have 8 weeks ago. So there you go. Things can change, but of now, pause, think about it, and think twice, because clearly IRAs, Roth IRAs are a policy matter for certain members of Congress and the Senate that really I don't think you saw at the forefront years ago. And with more and more money in retirement accounts, there's 12 trillion IRAs, there's 33 trillion total. In 8 years, expected to double, right? I keep using those numbers, but that's the Albert Einstein compounding return formula, right? Eighth wonder of the world, your money doubles every 8 years, assuming you get an 8% rate of return. So if you take those numbers, someone's going to wake up in 10 years, some Democrat, some Republican, is going to say, oh my God, look at all this wealth in retirement accounts. So many more people have so much more wealth in retirement accounts. We need to stop this. This is abusive. This is bad. Story starts again, even though it's just time value money, right? If you literally just bought the S&P 500 and went to sleep for 8 years, your money probably would double without doing a self-directed IRA, without being Peter Thiel, or without being super rich or aggressive. That's just going to be the way it works, and that's good. That's the whole point of the retirement system, right? We want to encourage people to save. It's the best way to bridge the wealth gap, to get more people comfortable, so we don't all have to rely on Social Security, which may not be there, and we can preserve and generate wealth for our families, which is the whole point of a private retirement system, right? We're not in a public pension system. We have to save for ourselves. We can't rely on the government. And unfortunately, what's going on now is that the government wants to, stick their hands into our retirement accounts. Thankfully, this is a way more moderate bill. I think a lot of us can live with this. Not horrible. Obviously, in a perfect world, none of this gets in. But I give, Ways and Means Committee, the Senate, whoever drafted this stuff, I give them a lot of credit for listening. I think this is certainly more palatable, makes more sense not to tax Roth contributions on forced distributions. Doesn't kick in for 6-7 years. Lets people plan. So I applaud them. Again, it's not a political thing. I applaud whoever drafted some of these provisions, that they basically thought it through and said, okay, these accredited investor, this officer 10% stuff, it's not going to fly. I understand the pushback, but hey, I still believe in the cap. I still want to stop Roth mega backdoors for whatever reason. So this is how I'm going to do it. And again, that's the way Washington works, and I'm okay with that. It's negotiation. You can't always get whatever you want. I try to tell my kids that. You have to negotiate. You have to find a middle ground. And I think this bill does a decent job of that. It's not perfect, but at the same time, on the other side, it's not horrible. So more to come. I appreciate everyone watching. I know it was short notice, but I hope you enjoyed today's Adam Live emergency session. And have a great night, and talk to everyone again next week. Don't forget, I do this every Wednesday, noon. So if you are eating lunch or eating breakfast, if you're on the West Coast and you want to spend some time with me learning about or listening, watching me talk about a up-to-date or current tax, retirement, self-directed retirement related topic, join me. Would love to spend some time with you. Thanks again for all your support. Really, really appreciate it. And have a great night.